The Washington Commanders' first preseason game is this Friday, and training camp is heating up. I'm Matthew Heiserman, your host of the Rays Hail Report, and today we are joined by Commanders podcaster and analyst Carter Lewis. Carter, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me, man. Make sure you sub up to this guy because he is a really good creator. He's up and coming. You're gonna do something one day.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, man. And I put the link to Carter's channel in the description of this video, so make sure you drop him a sub as well. Very great content being put out on his channel too. So I know you just had a live stream that you wrapped up where you were breaking down the first depth chart that was released today. I did a little look over of the depth chart. I haven't gotten to do like a full analysis of it yet. What kind of stood out to you from what you saw?
Well, obviously they make the rookies earn, everything. So we saw Connerly behind Wiley. I mean, we saw Hartman behind Josh Johnson was something that surprised me a little bit. I mean, you want Hartman to eventually be your backup quarterback behind Jayden, once Marcus, retires or whatever. So that stuck out to me. Josh Johnson seems like he has the job. Also, Michael Gallup seems like he was, farther ahead than I thought he was going to be. But this is the unofficial. This is the first one. So I expect there to be a lot of changes. But yeah, those are some of the things that stood out.
Yeah, and I'm not a big Michael Gallup fan. I mean, he's a guy who was retired last season, is 29 years old, and just compared to a guy like KJ Osborne, offers very little on special teams. Or even if you want to take a chance on a young guy like Ja'Cory Brooks, he offers more on special teams. I think he offers a lot more upside. So I don't know if I totally agree with having him that high. And then day 9 of training camp was today. From what you heard, from what you saw, what were some of your observations from camp?
Trey Amos continues to look like a baller. I mean, he had another pick today. He had a nice pass breakup today. He was starting on the depth chart as well. He's a guy that's already earned it. They don't have to make him earn it. I mean, I just saw Jayden continue to look surgical. The offense had a better day today. They've been struggling without Terry, but yeah, Trey Amos was what pretty much stood out to me today. He had a few nice plays today.
And sticking with that secondary, this secondary looks completely revamped from last year. What stood out to you the most about this secondary? Obviously, you have Amos. I know Sanders still has performed really well. Maybe Quan Martin is that underrated guy. What have you really liked from this secondary that struggled last season for Washington?
First off, I mean, you have Noah Igbenogany as a depth piece this year. I really like that. Mike Sainristil has been the best defensive player in training camp so far. I will say that. Quan Martin is, a close second. He's been really good. I think it's a breakout year for Quan. I've liked Will Harris. He's going to be like the Jeremy Chin replacement. He looks really good in coverage. He has good movement skills. Really liked what I've seen from him so far. I really do like the whole secondary. Obviously, Amos, Marshawn Lattimore, people are putting a lot of confidence into him this year. I hope that he can live up to that. I hope that he's not injured at all this year. He's looked really good. So this secondary, in my opinion, could be top 10 this year if they live up to expectations. But that being said, we've had, only a few days in pads, and tomorrow or Wednesday when we do the joint practice, that's when we're going to really see things start to ramp up. We're going to see, what this team really has. But the secondary for sure been one of the, it's went from a weakness last year to a strength this year.
And you mentioned the joint practice. They obviously have that preseason game that we're going to get into later against the Patriots. But so far throughout camp, I think one of my main observations has been how good Zach Ertz has played. He's 34 years old, doesn't look like it at all. And I think we saw Jayden take that extra step of leadership. I know that's hard for a rookie to do, but in year 2, he can take that extra step where I know Eckler said there was a play where he even kicked someone out of the huddle because they had a false start. I don't think we know who that was, but either way,
Corey Brooks.
Oh, it was Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
But either way, I just feel like Ertz is one of the guys who Jayden can still look up to as a leader for him. So what has stood out to you about Ertz this offseason? How productive can he be at age 34, and not just production on the field, but what does he bring to this team off the field in terms of leadership? Some of the young guys like Ben Sennett in this tight end room, how important is he to this team?
Yeah, definitely leading the younger guys. Off the field, he's just a leader. He's a great person, but on the field, I mean, he's a guy that is still getting after it. I mean, last year, how many times do we see Jayden throw to Zach Ertz down the stretch in clutch moments? I mean, the Falcons game,
Yeah.
Zach Ertz to win the game. It was just really impressive what Zach did last year. And he played 20 games. I just couldn't believe that he played all those games
Yeah.
because I mean, he's never done that in his career. And I'm not going to wish anything bad on Zach this year, but I just hope that he can stay healthy because,
Yeah.
he's a
Absolutely.
great player when he's healthy. So, yeah, he's been great this offseason. He, I believe it was day 8 of training camp. If you know who JP Finley is, I think most
Yeah.
of us do. He said it was Zach Ertz Appreciation Day. Like he had a really good day. He continues to stand out. What is this? His 16th year, maybe? I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah.
I expect him to have another big year. I think, last year he had like 600 yards and he's going to have a big year this year. I really like what he's done so far. He's going to be a key contributor again to this offense. And I hope that he can really teach Ben Sinnott, teach some of the Colson Yankoff, guys like that.
Absolutely. And then recently, Terry McLaurin was ranked 52nd on the NFL's top 100 list. I'm not going to spend this whole time talking about McLaurin because I know we've both done a lot of coverage on the
Yep.
McLaurin contract negotiations, but is 52 a fair placement? Obviously, he just is coming off a career year with the second most receiving touchdowns of any receiver in the NFL.
It's a fair placement, in my opinion, for what he did. 13 touchdowns, a touchdown in every single playoff game, 1,096 yards. This is a guy that I don't think they've ranked A.J. Brown yet, but I would put Terry ahead of A.J. Brown. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but he did have, 6 more touchdowns than A.J. last year.
Yeah.
He had, more yards, but not that much.
I think AJ was hurt as well, though, during part of
he had
season.
he missed 3 games, so we
Yeah.
got to be fair about that. But I think it's a fair placement. I mean, I think for how big he is to this team, that's why I hope that AP, extends him sometime soon. But you can't overpay a guy as well, right? Because he's getting older. But yeah, I think it's a fair placement. Guys like Malik Neighbors was at like 74, I think.
Mhm.
The NFL executives, I believe, when they ranked their players, they had Terry at 11. They had Malik Neighbors at I can't remember, but he was in the top 10. So it's just surprising that the NFL would go against their coaches and their executives and say that, Terry is 52 and he's, ahead of Malik Neighbors. And so that was surprising. But yeah, it's definitely a fair placement. He's a key contributor. He's the number 1 wide receiver on this squad. Obviously, he's a weapon. I mean, I think it's really a fair placement for him.
Do you know if Garrett Wilson's been ranked? Because I know he was number 10 on that execs list.
Yeah,
Might have
I
to
would
check
say he's
that
ahead
one.
of Terry because I don't think
Mhm.
he's been ranked yet. He's ahead of Terry. He probably is, unless he's not on there at all. But I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, if they have Terry, they're probably going to have Wilson. But,
Yeah,
the other day, Micah Parsons requested a trade. And then as well as like a whole 5-page note talking about how he didn't want to be in Dallas. You got the connections. You got Dan Quinn. You got Joe Witt Jr. You have Dorrance Armstrong on that defensive line. Is there a chance Micah could end up in Washington, or is that completely unrealistic?
I would say. I mean, I made a video about it, but that was more for like fun with my
Yeah.
subscribers. But I mean, I think it's unrealistic.
Mhm.
First off, I don't think the Cowboys are trading him because Jerry has complete leverage, like the Terry
Mhm.
situation, like
Mhm.
AP has leverage, but they're not going to trade him. They don't want to trade him. He's 26 years old. He's one of the best in the league. They're going to pay him. I mean, when Jerry opens up the pocketbook and shows him the money, I think Mike is going to act a little different. But I think it's unrealistic. Obviously, he loves Dan Quinn, but I just don't see it happening. I don't. First off, the Commanders, like, yes, they could trade Terry, but the Cowboys already traded for George Pickens. Would they really
Mhm.
want to trade and then pay Terry McLaurin? And then also, um, the Commanders would have to trade, a valuable, like, what, a first round pick and Terry McLaurin, maybe. I just don't think we have
Yeah.
the room to do that. What would Adam Peters offer? I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like we would have enough to offer. And the Cowboys are not going to trade Micah. I don't believe.
And I think that honestly, Washington would have to give up at least 2 firsts along with Terry to get Micah, just because
Yeah.
like you're trading one guy who wants more than you're willing to give him for another guy who probably wants more than you're willing to give him. And this guy's obviously a lot older. So somewhat unrealistic, something to definitely keep an eye out for. And then on Saturday, Brandon Coleman limped off the field during practice and was not there during camp today. I know his status is questionable right now for the joint practice and the preseason game. What kind of opportunity? Obviously, this sucks for him and what he could turn into this season, but what kind of opportunity does this maybe open for a guy like Andrew Wiley or the first round pick Josh Connerly Jr.?
Well, Coleman's a guard, and
Mhm.
but so Connerly's not a guard, obviously, but
Mhm.
this allows Connerly to not even have to earn it. He's going to be, he would
Yeah,
start at
yeah,
right tackle because they need Wiley to play
yeah.
that, guard position to fill in for Coleman, and nobody else can play ahead of Connerly. So Connerly gets
Mhm.
the spot. Definitely a big opportunity for them. If Coleman cannot go for the joint practice, it's going to be a little bit weird to see Connerly
Mhm.
starting because
Yeah.
we're not used to him yet. He has to get a lot stronger. He has to work on his fundamentals, but I just want to see what he's got, man. Face the Patriots defensive lineman. It opens up a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. I mean, Nick Allegretti too. There's just a lot of opportunities being opened up, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's bad for Coleman. We want to see Coleman starting. It's a big second year for him. It does open up a lot of opportunities for Wiley, but we kind of know what Wiley is at this point. He's just kind of a backup offensive lineman, and he can really play a lot of positions. So happy for Wiley, though, that he's getting all this action. He was getting action at right tackle because of Connerly and how young he is, and now because of Coleman. So happy for him, but this does open up a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. And if you're tuning in, make sure you like and subscribe. It's completely free, helps out the channel a ton. We got Connor Long in the chat. What's good, Matt and
Yes,
Carter?
sir.
We got Command the Field in the chat. So, yeah, make sure you sub up, leave all questions in the comment section. But the first preseason game is this Friday. What
Mhm.
players have the most to prove in this game? What players are you going to be paying the most attention to in this matchup?
Obviously Sam Hartman, because I don't think
Mhm.
we're gonna see Jayden or Marcus Mariota. I don't think, but obviously Sam Hartman and maybe a guy like Ja'Cory Brooks.
Mhm.
They'll probably get Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt out there a little bit.
Uh,
Trey Amos is probably not going to play, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I think he's already earned his spot.
mhm. Yeah.
But I think Connerly as well, watching him, all the rookies besides, Amos, like I said, undrafted free agents, Ja'Cory Brooks. I think Robert McDaniel, the safety, I liked him early on. He did good in
Mhm.
rookie minicamp. I'll be interested to see what he has. Carlin Vigors, a guy that, they
Mhm.
really like. All the undrafted free agents, all the rookies. As far as them, I don't think anybody else plays, but yeah, Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt would be probably my number one guy to watch. I'm just really excited to see
Mhm.
what he has. He's not a normal 7th round pick,
Yeah.
right? He's kind of different. Like he could get reps week 1. He just has to go out and earn it through the
Mhm.
preseason.
And I think part of him not being a normal seventh round pick is the fact that if he played last season at Arizona, he wouldn't be a seventh round
Yeah.
pick, which is definitely something to consider. And I think he brings a level of explosiveness to his game that you kind of see in that NFC Championship game last year against the Eagles, where Saquon got that 50 plus yard rush.
Mhm.
Somehow we let Will Shipley get that 50-yard rush. And it felt like Washington didn't have that explosive back and B. Robert Eckler. Maybe Croskey-Merritt could change that. Connor says, what's the asking price for Terry McLaurin?
So we got a report from Stephen A. Smith the other day that it was 27 million. However,
Yeah.
I'm not going to trust
Yeah.
that at all. Or no, they offered him 27 million. Sorry, that was the
Yes.
report. They offered
Mhm.
him 27 million. The asking price from Adam Schefter, this is per Adam Schefter, is roughly $33 million. If I had to give
Mhm.
you an answer, that's what I'd give you because Adam Schefter is plugged in. So I think I'd trust that. As far as the offering
Mhm.
price, I don't know if I'm going to trust Stephen A. Smith. He said they offered him 27 million. I think it's around 25 to 26 million because I think they're using Mike Evans as a kind of a guy that they can go off of. Mike Evans is making what, $26 million a year.
Mhm.
And like they're saying Mike Evans is a future gold jacket wearer. Like you
Mhm.
can make as much as him because you're not much better than him at his age. And he was definitely better than you in his prime. I think they're
Mhm.
saying that. So I think they're using Mike Evans. But I would say the asking price for Terry is roughly 33 million, which
And
is
it
way
really,
too high.
yeah, yeah. And it sucks how DK Metcalf kind of made this negotiation 10 times harder for Washington because all
Yeah.
Terry has to do is look at DK, who was overpaid, and say, I'm arguably better than him. So do I deserve that contract? And I think Washington is maybe trying to look at other guys in the market like DJ Moore, Mike Evans, as you mentioned, T. Higgins potentially at the max that they're willing to give him at, I think, 28.75 million. And then the other wide receiver who I wanted to look at, who you touched on earlier, was Ja'Cory Brooks. He was obviously undrafted, but he's looked really solid during 11 on 11s or 11 on 11s. He has struggled though during drills. I know specifically with drops. So
Yep.
what kind of production is what's necessary for him to be able to make that 53-man roster? Because I know Rio Robinson said on both of our shows recently, maybe he's just a guy who thrives in games. So what do you need to see from him this preseason to feel like he can earn that sixth spot on this wide receiver room?
I listened to Cliff Kingsbury talk this morning, and he
Mm-hmm.
said that they don't have a bell cow in the receiver room without Terry, like other than
Mm-hmm.
Deebo right now. I think he needs to emerge himself as the bell cow, the guy that can go deep, beat you with
Yeah.
speed, and get a touchdown, right? I think he just needs to get touchdowns, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but just blow past guys and show that he can work. And he has an advantage because he has youth on his side. Like guys that are
Mm-hmm.
fighting for the sixth roster spot are like what KJ Osborne, Michael
Mm-hmm.
Gallup, Chris Moore. Like
Yeah.
they're all older. So, Brooks does have youth, but he has to go out there and show it. If he's going to keep dropping passes, there's just not a world where he makes the roster, but because that's very noticeable. But he just has to get touchdowns, be dominant out there. Try to be as dominant as you can out there.
Now, I don't think Ja'Cory actually has crazy speed. I think he ran a 4.65
Yeah,
40-yard
he did.
dash. He's 195 pounds, might struggle against press coverage off the line, maybe in jump ball situations. Do you think Jalen Lane could maybe be that guy instead?
Yeah, Jalen Lane can be that guy. I don't know if he's as good as a vertical threat, as
Mm-hmm.
Ja'Cory Brooks, like because he's a slot guy. But yeah, I heard that his speed is real out there. Jalen Lane looks really good. He's had a lot of touchdowns. He can definitely beat you off a route. But yeah, I think he's definitely a fast player, right? And Cliff talked about it this morning. Like he looks really fast and really good. So yeah, he can be that guy for sure. I'm excited to watch him in the preseason. I forgot him earlier when you asked me that question. The preseason and this joint practice, we need to see Jalen Lane.
Definitely. And then after seeing how things are going during training camp, considering where Terry's negotiations are at, what does that gap look like right now between Washington and Philadelphia? Have the Commanders made up any ground this offseason? If so, how much?
Yeah, they had made up ground, but they made up some ground, but I don't know if I could give you an exact amount. But the Eagles roster is definitely better still. I mean, they were good at every position last year. Like they were solid at every position. But we've definitely made up ground. AP's done a good job of making up ground. You only had like 1 year to do that. He came in last year. He's trying his best. We're certainly getting there. They did lose a few key guys. I mean, they lost Josh Sweat, their pass rusher, but then they got Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, and he kind of made that up. But we made up ground. But I just think that they're still much better far ahead, and
Yeah.
that's expected when they've been rebuilding for years. And they have a super team around them. Their offensive line is much better. Their defensive line is much better. But I talked about it last offseason. I said, if we want to have a shot to be a real competitive team, we have to go build the O-line because that's what the Eagles are doing. And, they trade for Laramie Tunsil, which I really loved. It was a blockbuster trade. They go and draft Josh Connerly, and you just build that offensive line. Now with sliding Brandon Coleman to guard, I think this is a group that could emerge themselves as a top 10 group in the league this year. So they have definitely made up ground on the offensive line and defensive line, got a lot more depth on the defensive line. So I'm excited to see what they have this year. They have made up considerably the gap to the Eagles.
Yeah, I definitely think that they've addressed the positions of need that they
Yep.
had to this offseason between offensive line and the secondary. Now, it's interesting because in PFF's end of year offensive line rankings, they put Washington at 10th. And then in their 2025 preseason rankings, they fell to 19th, which was kind of interesting considering what they had done this offseason. Maybe it obviously relates to what other teams have done, but are there 9 teams that were below Washington last season that have improved more than them? That I'm not sure about. But who are some of your top breakout candidates for this team in 2025?
Like as a whole, or like the offensive line?
As a whole, anywhere.
Quan Martin, I talked about it earlier. He's a guy. He's looked fantastic so far. He had 2 split shoulders last year, and he still went out and balled in the Lions game. Quan Martin for sure. Jacob Martin, the pass rusher, I think we could see him. He's had, like under 4 sacks every year of his career. I'm excited to see him. He could possibly have a good year. Dorrance Armstrong, he had 5 sacks last year. I think he could have had 8 because he was injured a lot last year. He could have a double-digit year. Joe Witt Jr. talked about it earlier this offseason. Somebody's going to have to emerge themselves, and somebody will emerge themselves as a dominant pass rusher in that room. Could be Jacob Martin, could be Dorrance Armstrong. We'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that could break out this year. I mean, B-Rob, even like with a better O-line, he's never had over 800 yards in his career. He could break out. So yeah, there is a lot of candidates.
I think some of my top ones would probably be Croskey-Merritt, number 1, if you want to include guys who were just drafted. I think assuming the Coleman injury isn't too serious, we could see him take a big jump. Johnny Newton's another player I'm looking out for. And maybe one other guy would be someone like Dom Hampton at the linebacker room, because he started as a safety last year and he switched to linebacker. That's obviously a tough transition to do mid-season. You have to change your body for that. You have to change your skill set for that. So maybe now that he's in this linebacker room playing behind Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, 2 of the top linebackers in the league, we could see a much better year from him this season. Now, my final question for you before we wrap things up, I've kind of been asking everybody this question at the end because it's interesting to see what everybody says. What would Washington have to do this season for you to be satisfied with what they accomplished?
So we haven't gotten like back-to-back 10-win seasons in a long time.
I think I saw we haven't made the playoffs in consecutive years since 91-92.
Wow. Yeah. So that's your answer right there. Make the playoffs consecutive years in a row. And I would like to see a playoff win. I don't want to see this team go in here and lose a playoff game. I mean, if the opponent's a real good opponent, then, it's understandable. But I just want to see them make the playoffs again, be consistent again, and then win a playoff game. Let's do that. And maybe get to the NFC Championship again. But I'd be satisfied with a 1 playoff game. Considering, what we've been through the past few years, like, I'd be happy with that because I haven't seen success from this team in my life, but I was loyal and I stuck with them. So, just make it to the playoffs, win a playoff game. However, this schedule is a lot harder this year. It's going to be really hard to get, do what we did last year. I don't know if 12 wins is on the radar this year. Just the schedule is so much harder. People don't realize that. Like people say, the Giants week 1 is, an easy win. It's not. It's not. I can tell you that defensive line is dominant, and they drafted Abdul Carter. So that's going to be a hard one. I do believe, we'll win that game, and I am going to that game, by the way. Week 2, you travel to Lambeau Field on a Thursday night on a short week after you just got beat up by the Giants, on the line. That's going to be, I would see that as a loss right now. So I hate to be negative Nancy over here, but it's going to be a hard schedule. But yeah, make it to the playoffs, win a playoff game. That's what I'd like to see.
And I think it just shows some level of reassurance that this team is still relevant because of fans who have not really seen this team succeed. I think just being able to make it back to the playoffs would let us know that this team will continue to be relevant and continue to be competitive. Now, one final question before we wrap things up. You mentioned how obviously, you've always been a fan of the Commanders, diehard fan. How does that work with you being a fan of the Commanders and the Thunder?
Well, so the Thunder, I started watching the NBA when I was like 3 or 4. I saw my dad had the game turned on and I just saw them and I loved their mascot and I loved their logo, loved everything about him. And I picked them and I've been through the hard times, man. When they traded Westbrook, I was like, oh my gosh. And then they traded or Kevin Durant left after he told Westbrook he
Mhm.
wasn't going to leave. It was
Mhm.
just so disappointing. But we're back and we're the champions. So it just, I don't know. I'm a fan of a team that, I live in West Virginia, so they are
Mhm.
far away, but I've been to a Wizards and Thunder game. I hope to go to the Thunder's
Mhm.
arena soon, but yeah, that's how it works. So, and I go to a few Commanders games every year. So
Mhm.
I love having these teams, man.
Absolutely, you're starting to, get to see your teams thrive a little more
Yeah.
than before. But I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
Subscribe to Matthew because he is going to be the next big Commanders content creator. Yeah, that's all I got, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, I really appreciate you hopping on. If you made it up to this point, I think I can't thank you enough for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe. Helps the channel grow significantly and is completely free. I'm Matthew Heiserman on the Race Hill Report alongside Carter Lewis, and as always, we will see you next time.